Welcome back to the vlog. We're going to be at Capital Casino playing in a 1-3 game. I combined 3 days worth of play for the highlights and lowlights for your enjoyment. So sit back, relax, enjoy. Here it comes. First interesting hand that starts out this session. We're about 30 minutes in. We're up about 80 bucks. And we find 2 aces on the button. There were a couple limpers, raised to 20, and we get 3 players that put in for the 20. So we're going to see a flop 4 ways with $83 in the pot. Flop comes out pretty good for our hand. It comes Queen, Jack, 5, rainbow. So we got an overpair. And we probably get action from someone with a queen, maybe a jack, or maybe some sort of straight draw. It gets checked all the way around. I decided to go about half pot, bet $40 here. First player folds, second player folds, and the final player jams all in. He was a short stack, so it's not much more, $35, $36. Of course, this is a very easy call. If he has queen jack or pocket 5, so be it. We're going to lose the pot. But other than that, we should be well ahead. Well, he does turn over queen jack, so we need a little help. Turns a 6, river, we catch the ace. So we end up catching up and beating him, and we win a little $235 pot. I'll take it. That last table was a little slow, so we take a table change to where the big stacks are, and we sit down. Our first hand we get involved in, we have king, queen offsuit in the big blind. There's a raise to 15, and 6 people call. Here, squeezing is an option, but I decided just to call because there's so many people out there, I might run into something. We see a flop that comes king, queen, 7, rainbow. Beautiful flop. I check to the aggressor, who puts out a small bet for $20. He's been very active so far at the table, so I'm going to be putting in a check raise here. One player folds out, the next player raises to 60. He's a little bit more on the conservative side, so I'm kind of worried that he might have pocket 7s, but maybe something like jack 10. Anyway, everyone else folds out, and I was thinking about how much I wanted to raise, and I saw the guy behind me start making the call. And I didn't want him to leave because I know he's the action player. I just decided to put in the call and see a turn. It's a little dangerous to do so, but what the heck. Turn card comes as a 10 of hearts, not the greatest. If he had ace jack, he just made a straight. I checked, and it gets checked around. A little surprising. I decided to figure out how much I want to bet, but then I see the player behind me look like he wanted to, so I checked to him. And sure enough, he bets $100, which is quickly called by the player at the end of the table. This is definitely a check raise spot for me. I got top 2 pair. Maybe he has 2 pair. Maybe he just has a king. I don't think he has ace jack or jack 9. So I decided to put it in for $300. Now, I chose my sizing for one reason and one reason only, is because I don't think anyone has anything really good. And I figured that he would probably call off with any kind of weak 2 pair, but after a long tank, he finds the fold. The other player quickly folds. Well, I'm very happy that we won the pot. I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't get an extra $200 out of the action player. He did think for a very long time before folding. Here we're in the +1 position with ace 9 suited, open for a raise to 15. It gets folded to the player on the button, who is a very competent, very strong player, who puts in the call for the 15. Everybody else decides to fold out, so it's just going to be the 2 of us going to a flop. Flop comes out, king, 10, 3 with 1 diamond. Not a very good flop for ace 9. I decided just to check it over to my opponent, who bets $15. I decided to float at this point, looking to get some equity on the turn, and that's exactly what happens when I catch the 4 diamonds. Again, I check over to my opponent, and this time he sizes up a bit. He puts in a pot-sized bet for $65. So what kind of hand do I put my opponent on? I think he has something like king, queen, or king, jack, maybe queen, jack, maybe even something as weak as just a 10 with a good kicker, say ace 10. I think he really doesn't want a call at this point and that he'd be happy to take it down. But of course, I didn't float the flop to fold to a bet now. I have a nut flush draw. Plus, I was an early position raiser, and I could have been slow playing something like pocket kings, pocket tens, maybe ace king suited, pocket aces even. So it's time to turn my hand into a semi-bluff and make it 215. It's $150 more. My goal here is to get a bunch of folds from hands that were a weak king or a strong 10. He does decide to put in the call after a long tank, and we're going to head off to a river where we were hoping for a diamond, of course, but instead we get the queen of clubs. Well, our backup plan for not making our flush was just to go ahead and fire again like we had something on the flop. So just pretend I was going to represent pocket tens here. What would I do? Well, I would bet, and I'll bet about the size of the pot, maybe a little less. So I make it $400. Not a very comfortable situation. He takes forever, and I do mean forever, and quizzing me all sorts of questions. But after about 3 minutes or so, he finally decides on a fold. Yes, we get this one through. Very pleased that it worked. Yay. Whew. We played for a little while longer, but nothing interesting happened, so we headed home, and the next day we came back and we found ourselves in a great situation. We have a player to our direct right who is an action player and has been playing many, many hands. So far I've seen him 4-bet jam with king 3. I've seen him 3-bet with 5-4 and then fire a $100 bet on the flop. Yeah, he's a wild man, and he's playing super aggressively. I think he plays bigger limits, and this is just like no fun for him unless he's like in the mix with something crazy. I would say he was playing about 70% of the hands that he was dealt in, and he was not afraid to be bluffing, and he was not afraid to put action in at any step of the way. So knowing this, I looked down at ace 4 suited. There was an $8 straddle. He limps in for the 8, and I raised to 30, just trying to isolate him. Everyone else folds out, and he ends up putting in the call for the $30. So far, so good. I'm happy to be heads up with this guy, and we'll see what happens on the flop. Well, flop comes out, and it wasn't the greatest. It comes 10 high with 2 clubs. He checks to me. I decided this is probably good for his crazy range, so I just check it back. I was planning on calling down any kind of bluff on the turn. We do turn the ace of hearts. Now we have top pair. Definitely not going anywhere with him betting. He bets $50. I decided just to put in the call. What does he have? He could have anything. Seriously, anything. River card comes as a bad card. It's the 10 of clubs. So it paired the 10 on the flop, and it puts up the flush draw. He bets 160 now. I can't go anywhere. I've seen how this guy plays. So I put in the call, and he has it this time. Jack 6 of clubs. I add $500 to my stack, and we go off to the next hand. I want to make sure I cover him in case I pick something up. Here I'm in the big blind with ace 8 offsuit. I get a free look at a flop, and it comes ace 8-4 with 2 clubs. I check it over, expecting someone to bet, and someone does for $10. Pretty sure they have some sort of ace. Next player puts in the call for the 10, and it's folded back around to me, and we're going to get some money in the spot while the getting's good. So I make it $40. Player to my left folds out. The first player, who I'm pretty sure had an ace, thinks for a while before making a fold. He probably puts me on a pretty good hand. The next player puts in the call. So with one ace gone, I believe he's probably on some sort of flush draw. Turn is a deuce of diamonds. Good turn card for me. I decided to bet $90. Figuring I was putting a lot of pressure on those flush draws. And he doesn't think too long before putting in the call. So when they call that quick, they more than likely have a big draw, maybe some sort of combo draw. Keeping that in mind, we get to go to the river. And river card is kind of crazy. It's a 4. So I really thought that if he had a missed flush, he might try to fire his way out. So I check it over to him. He quickly tables ace 9, so we're going to win this one, but my read was off on this one. Well, in the +1 position, the player to our right limps in. He's the action player I was speaking of earlier. Next player puts in the call from the low jack. Button ends up folding, but the small blind comes along for the $20. Big blind ends up folding, and now it's back to the action player who decides he's going to make it $115. This is music to my ears. I finally get a premium hand against him, and what to do now? Well, even though he did the limp re-raise, I seen him limp re-raise with a lot of garbage. So I'm not too concerned with that, but I figured even if he had a premium hand, I got ace-king suited, we're probably flipping at worst, all right? So now I'm trying to decide whether to let the other players in. Would they call a $95 raise? They might if they thought they were getting the correct odds. So to take that out of the equation, I just decided I'm just going to go ahead and jam, get folds from those two players, take my chances against the action player on my right. I got a premium hand against a very, very wild player. If he has a big pair, okay, I got ace king still. If he has something worse, I'm okay if he folds, but he probably won't. He slides in the rest of his chips. I'm happy about that. He asked if I had a pair. I said I have ace king, and then he shows me his pair, which happens to be a pair of kings. So this just proves that even a blind squirrel can find an acorn, and a wild player can pick up big hands. Well, it was time to reload again. This time I bought 1,000. I want to make sure I had him covered if I picked up a hand against him again, because I definitely think that he's going to get a lot of action from me, and I'm just waiting for the right spot. It's very frustrating waiting to get a good hand against an opponent that you're just dying to stack, but you never get it. Anyway, he ended up leaving after this hand, and I opened for $20 with king queen after he limps. Player to my left, who is a good player, puts in the raise to 65, and it's folded back around to the player on my right, who picks up his chips and starts walking away, and the dealer had to tell him, hey, you got $2 coming back to you. So now the action player is leaving, the one I was targeting with my $20 raise, and instead I've got another player who makes it 65, who probably knows what he's doing. The only thing that gives me any glimmer of hope is that he's running about as salty as I am at this time. So yeah, this is a bad thing. I should just fold this and just get out of the way and probably head on home. But instead I decided, okay, this will be my last stand, and I make the call for the 65. The two of us head off to a flop, which comes ace, jack, 9, rainbow. I check it over, intending to fold to a bet, and he checks it back, which was a little bit surprising to me. I thought he would follow through. Turn card comes as a queen of spades. I make a second pair with a good kicker, but it's not worth betting, and I think he might have a strong hand, so I decided to check to him, and he bets $75 at this point. I should probably just lay this down, take my loss, and go home. But no, I decided to put in the 75. And now the river card comes up is the Queen of Hearts. Really good card. I would have been happier with a 10, but the Queen of Hearts was the second best card I can get. I check it over to him again because I don't think there's any value of me betting. If he's bluffing, I want him to continue to bluff. And if he has a big hand, I don't want to give him a chance to, get all my chips. So after I check, he bets 160. What could he have? Well, I don't think he would bet ace-jack or ace-king in this spot. I thought maybe he flopped a set of jacks. Maybe he was still playing pocket aces. Maybe he has the same hand I do, king-queen, but would he really raise me with king-queen offsuit because I have both of the king-queen suiteds blocked? I think I'm beat here. I think he's going to show me pocket jacks or ace-queen. I don't know what to do. I'm a little bit tilted. I'm a little frustrated. I'd tell myself this is going to be my last hand either way. I'm just going to pay him off. So I tell him that if he has a full house, it's good. Well, that's good. I was really surprised that I actually had the winner. He turned over ace king of diamonds, and I was surprised he bet that on the end. So let's recap that last hand. I was trying to isolate the player on my right. I get isolated by a good player on my left. Probably should just fold the pre-flop, but I don't. I put in a very loose call. I get to see a free turn card and then make another bad call. And then when I get to the river, I can't find any bluffs for my opponent, and I decided to call him anyway. Yes, not very good. After all that, I ended up winning the pot, so bad play gets rewarded sometimes. After that, it's definitely time to head on home. Well, we're back at Capital for day 3. Here we have 7-6 in the big blind. There's a $6 straddle. A bunch of people call, so I go ahead and make the call for an extra $3, and we see a flop of King 8-5 with 2 clubs. I flop an open ender, not much else. I check it. It gets checked around to a player who bets $20. Most likely they have a king in their hand. They don't have anything else, right? They can't have a king and a flush draw. There's a king of clubs on the board. So I make the call, and so does one other player out back who I think is very, very weak. So the 3 of us see a turn card, which is the Jack of Hearts. Doesn't complete anything for me. I check again. The next player checks, and the original bettor decides to bet again, this time for $35. Yeah, I'm going to continue, and now I believe if I catch a club, I'll have an excellent opportunity to bluff, and if I make my hand, I'm just going to bet for value. Next player folds out. 2 of us see a river card of a 10 of clubs. Okay, I missed everything, but it does come a club. Perfect card to bluff with. I go ahead and bet $100 into the $172 pot, and they quickly fold. I've been pretty card dead most of the day. Here I pick up a pair of jacks in the +1 position. We have 1 limper. I make it 15. It gets folded around to the player in the cutoff who puts in the call. Everyone else folds out. So we're going to go heads up to a flop with $47 in it. Flop comes out 8-6-6 with 2 hearts. Really good flop for me, but occasionally you want to be checking this hand. Try to induce your opponent, especially if they're very aggressive like this player is and very prone to bluffing. I'm going to just check call this. We get to see a turn card, which comes a king of clubs. Not a good card, not only because it's an overcard to my pair, but it scares my opponent into checking. River card's an ace of clubs, another not good card. I check. He fires. He would fire with anything. I think this is like a desperation bluff because he has not much. So I get put in the call. He shows Jack 10 offsuit. And by checking this, we made an extra $70. Again, I go on a long dry spell, about an hour and a half, and finally I find Ace King. Open for a raise from under the gun for 15. I get a call from an action player and 1 player who has a very deep stack. So the 3 of us are going to end up going off to this flop with $49 in the center. Flop comes out as good as you can imagine. Ace, King, Deuce with 2 hearts. So a flop top 2. There is a possible flush draw out there. I decide to bet for 15. I get a quick call from the first player, and second player also puts in the call. I figure one of them has an ace, one of them has maybe a straight or a flush draw. So when the 2 of hearts hits, I decide to go ahead and check this. Player bets $45 rather quickly. He could have a flush, he could have an ace trying to protect against the flush. The next player makes the call. Well, with 2 people putting in action here, I figure one of them has the flush. So I don't know if this is the correct play, but I can't fold Ace King in this spot. I'm going to go ahead and make the call. Hopefully catch an ace or king and fill up. Well, we get the second best. We catch another deuce on the river. So now we have a full house. Anyone with an ace has a full house also. I check it. Player bets again, this time for $100. Player at the end of the table looks perplexed, and I can tell that he probably had the flush. He flashes his neighbor his cards and makes the discipline fold. So I was pretty sure I was beat there. The player who bet, I'm guessing they have an ace. What else would they have? I thought about jamming to see if I can get them off a chop. But after all, this player is super sticky and isn't going anywhere for the stack size that we have. But I felt like I had to put something in, so I decided to put a min raise and make it $200. He snap calls, and we end up chopping the pot. The very next hand, I'm in the big blind with pocket deuces, and there's a bunch of limpers. I just check it. So we go 6 ways to a flop, which comes out Queen 8 deuce with 2 diamonds. Great flop for my hand. I check. It ends up getting checked around. So I'm a little disappointed in that. Turn card comes as a black 7. Awesome. First player checks. I'm just going to bet my own hand for me this time. I make it 20. It ends up being folded back around to the player in the small blind who is a very competent player I play with a lot, and he decides that he does not want to play for $20, is that he wants to play for $60. Well, he's a kind of a trappy player, so I don't think he has pocket queens, of course. He definitely would raise with that to thin the field, but he could have pocket eights or pocket sevens. Out of the two pair combinations, only queen eight makes sense unless he has queen seven of diamonds. He wouldn't do this with 8-7. So my plan here is just to go ahead and flat. He will lead, and if it comes a complete blank on the end, I'll decide whether I want to put in a raise or not. But I don't get that opportunity when the 6 of diamonds comes in. This makes his queen 7 of diamonds a better hand than mine. So the only thing I can beat now is queen 8. I'll let you listen to the table talk. This is the talk of someone who is extremely confident that they have the best hand.
If I lose or not, I win because I gotta be on the brass. So if I lose, I'm still happy. If I win, I'm still happy. I have to be at the brass. Better deuces. Oh shit! I should lose more. Make sure you put that hand in there, right?
Well, I may have missed out on a little extra value there by not raising, but against this opponent and with that board and his table talk, I wasn't going to take the chance of getting stacked. Anyway, we do end up winning the pot, and he did make the vlog. There's an early position limper. We look down at ace-jack suited from middle position, put in a raise to $20. End up getting a call from the player on the button, and then one player from the blind and the limper. So the four of us are going to go see a flop with $83 in the pot. We get a pretty good flop when it comes ace, king, 9 with 2 hearts. We do have top pair, decent kicker. There are a lot of possible draws out there. So when the first 2 players checked me, I'm not going to be putting in a small bet on this one. I'm going to make it $55. Player on the button puts in the call. He's been running pretty bad the last half hour or so, lost most of his stack already. So I think he's more willing to gamble than the others. Both the other players end up folding, and we get to see a river card, which comes the 5 of diamonds. With his stack size and his current mental attitude of gambling, I decided let's just get it all in there. If he has something he wants to play, he'll definitely call it off. If not, oh well. He quickly folds, and we take down the last hand of the day. As you can tell from the totals, this week was very up and down. It was all over the place. Got a bluff through, ran into pocket kings with ace king, made a couple plays that worked out. Also got rewarded for playing king queen, probably as bad as I could play it. So all in all, I'll take it. On a personal note, my son Michael got into bouldering, and he invited me to go climbing with him. I thought I could probably hang pretty good with him since he's only been doing this for about a month. But this is the orange level here. If you guys know anything about bouldering, it's not easy to do this. Anyway, he's seems to be a natural at it, a little born Spider-Man. And I, on the other hand, am nowhere close to his ability. In fact, it's if I was to even attempt this, I would be way down on the ground already. So anyway, he was very happy to get to this point. He tried this wall several times, and here he succeeds. So I'm very proud of him, and he is one hell of a kid.